What will make AI actually popular? Because let's face it, from the perspective of negativity, it's not for no reason. A bunch of companies throughout 2025, throughout last year, cited AI as a reason behind the layoffs. Was it always AI? I highly doubt it. It was underperformance, economic environment, their inability to sell the products, their inability to manage their cost baseline, all of those things, right? But obviously, from the perspective of, hey, we failed, telling that story to the investors versus we're being smart and diligent and we are investing in AI by firing a bunch of these people. Very different and more positive in time story to tell to the investors. So do I fully believe this number? Absolutely not. Do I believe that there's some roles that were eliminated because of AI? Yes, but primarily because of the fact that the CEO decided that, hey, we no longer need these junior developers. Claude can now go and program it, right? Like things of that nature. Ill-placed, ill-advised, but there's definitely something out there, right? From the perspective of the jobs. And a lot of people are seeing this. They might not understand the story for the investors, but they see the news lines and they say, hey, you're trying to sell me this AI vision. We're spending so much money on AI, AI, AI. I'm myself, as an individual, do not see any benefit. As a college graduate, I do not see any benefit because I'm still unemployed. The next part of it is obviously also the slop content. And there's a lot of it out there. Like, I try to get rid of it as much as possible whenever I see it. Try to make sure I don't interact with it. Just like trying to tell my, whatever algorithm to say like, do not dare to show me more of this. Do I think it's bad? The tools themselves, no, right? Like AI tools, the creative tools, image generation, things of that nature can be helpful. Like I use Google Gemini all the time for work. It helps me sometimes to brainstorm certain ideas, just like pull up some information real quickly. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. And I don't trust it fully and I still have to recheck everything, but at least it speeds me up in certain areas, right? But again, people see all of this and they start now perceiving like, oh my God, you're telling me how AI will create all these future amazing companies. All I see is some random cat getting arrested or some whatever SpongeBob driving off from the cop, right? Like that's all I'm seeing. And of course it creates certain layer of like, hey, institutification of my life. Like the jobs are going away because of the AI tool, the quality of the content goes away, something else out there is happening and people are just trying to use AI and the products are getting worse because of this. So like as a general normal person, I look at all of this and I say, hey, you're telling me this is a positive story, but I'm not seeing it, right? And from the perspective of like the benefits that they start telling us of saying like, hey, but like, look at the stock market. The stock market has never been bigger. Like Nvidia is a $5 trillion company, whatever they are, 4 trillion, wherever they are today. The thing is, I always wanted to remind people that yes, the stock numbers are high and it's as good, but it's a lot of it is inflated and we can go company by company and indicate where it's really inflated versus where it's actual earnings. And let's give it to Nvidia. They actually are selling a ton of different things, as well as like Google and a couple of others in Max 7. And they do make money. So I have a little bit of less of an issue with them necessarily, but I think still it's just the reality of the stock market is completely disjointed now from the fundamentals. I believe in fundamentals. I believe that the company should be valued based on some future projections, but ultimately I'm buying your stock today. Where are you today? Where are you going to be in a couple of quarters? And Tesla is a good example of the company where I feel like it's ridiculously overvalued, where on a good day, it's like a $200 billion company, right? And they're like at what, 1.5 trillion. But I digress. The whole point why I'm bringing this up is that when I look at basically the stock ownership and the benefit of it, it's very much distributed heavier towards higher income earners, right? This is one of the stats that I pulled out from Statista that basically shows you kind of like distribution. A lot of people who are most vulnerable to the effects of that we discussed earlier about the layoffs and potential economic downturn, things of that nature. They do not necessarily own any stock. And if they do, even that percentage I think is inflated because it includes their 401ks and things of that nature that's automatically attributed to them, but not something they can benefit from today, right? These earners very likely have it in liquid accounts. It's something like their bonuses, their savings. If they were good about the savings, it's a cash that was invested in the market that they can pull out of the market on a day's notice, right? These individuals cannot take advantage of that. So they don't feel the wealth accretion from the stock prices going up. But the other stat that I don't have here is that in general, I think I saw this a couple of times, only about 10% of the stock out there is actually owned by individuals, right? Like regular investors. And 90% of it is really with institutional investors. It's your pension funds, your hedge funds, right? Your banks and those kind of organizations. So for any dollar that the stock market goes up, you only see about 10 cents actually going to this individual. So again, that story doesn't stick for them either. And so that's why I kind of roll my eyes at statements like this when someone like Sam Altman says like, hey, in 10 years, we're going to have this amazing opportunity for you. Amazing jobs. All of you are going to be making a ton of money. This is going to be great. The thing is that notice how the benefits that the corporations and these individuals who are making billions off of these, AI booms, they're making the money today. But you wait 10 years, 11 years, 15 years, and you're going to see, but somewhere in the future, just wait, just don't worry about it right now. Just, it's going to be fine. 10 years, 5 years, it's going to be fine, right? Like there's this always story I always laugh at is the fact that all of the benefits that they're enjoying are current. All the benefits that you're going to enjoy, just wait. Be patient. You're going to see. It's all going to come. And this is where a lot of these stories kind of coming back to the question of what would make AI better, right, for the individuals. We can go it in a lot of different ways, but the story that I want to go through is really the story of the incentives. See, and we need to think about the incentives of the individuals who are running these companies, who are benefiting from the growth of this market, right? And we need to think about, okay, what are the driving things behind kind of their decision making, because I think it's important for us to understand, since that will inform how do we address the situation that potentially AI creates that further will deteriorate people's excitement about the tools. And again, the tools can be amazing. There's a lot of benefits from it. I can go on and on in terms of things that we can benefit from. But what we need to consider is the fact that today, all of the incentives of all these individuals like Sam Altman's and some of the other ones we're going to talk about involved in this conversation is all around the EV, enterprise value. And enterprise value essentially is a metric which, assigns numerical value to the value of the company, right? And it's important because whether you're a public or private company, you get to benefit from the stock price, you get to benefit from the options value, right? And you get to make a lot of money if those numbers go up, and those numbers do go up with AI and those kind of things. The problem is that today AI, and again, not always, I just kind of complain about the lack of people paying attention to fundamentals. But if you go at a very general scale, revenue, EBITDA are the two things that kind of accretive to the enterprise value, and obviously the costs are dilutive to the value of the enterprise. And the thing is that if you look at all these tools, whether it's AI and even in the future AGI, if say they developed the AGI and now there's some smart intelligent software that we can go and plug into our computers and it's going to do a lot of cool things, they are all perceived as being drivers of the revenue, drivers of the EBITDA, and EBITDA is essentially a fancy word for profit. It's a fancy word, but plus some accounting magic happening there to help show profit. But just for the sake of benefit, so we don't go into the FP&A discussion, think of it as a profit, right? These are the drivers, right? It can give you the savings. Yes, it's going to cost you a little bit to buy those tools, to buy those tokens, but ultimately by the world, by the investors, by the executives and the leaders in the companies, AI is perceived as accretive to the value. Headcount, people, you and I, not always. Incorrectly so, because people have to do the job, people have to do the selling, maintain the facilities, do all sorts of things, right? But in the grand scheme of things, people are considered to be dilutive to the enterprise value. And this is where you see there's a lot of excitement of how do we replace all these people with AI? How can I get rid of all the employees so I can make all the same money using AI tools? And then I get to, enjoy the benefits of the increase. And this is an important consideration because until something is addressed with this picture, right? Something is addressed with how this is perceived, you will never have an incentives to go and change anything about how AI will affect people. So with this, AI will always have a negative effect on the broader population, right? People will lose jobs. Maybe not right now, not immediately. There's a lot of people oh, that's it. All the programmer jobs are done. Oh, that's it. All the illustrator jobs are done. It's not going to happen immediately, right? But if the story of any technological development is an indication, you see this kind of like hype curve initially, right? There's a lot of early adopters, and then it plateaus for a little while, but then slowly but surely it penetrates through more and more aspects of our life until it becomes ubiquitous, right? And everyone is using it. Internet was the same way. At first it was only like, educational institutions, right? Then slowly some businesses, then slowly some organizations. There were some cool techie people who were like, oh cool, I have this thing called internet and I have access to it. Now imagine your life without it, right? I believe AI will go through the same. We're kind of like in this hype cycle, everyone's adapting now. We're kind of like plateauing, tech excitement is going away, the use cases are not necessarily there. But I do believe that automation will in general penetrate more and more aspects of our life. And unfortunately, it risks affecting people out there. And this is where I will surprisingly say that I kind of agree on one thing with Elon Musk, right? And the whole concept, I don't know, it's fine. The whole concept of potentially thinking about universal high income. First of all, it was a stupid statement in general when he made it, from the perspective of like, oh, you don't need to save money, just the universal high income is coming. Just don't worry about it. I have a lot of thoughts on this guy, right? But let's say I wouldn't trust too much on the aspects of social benefits for the broader population to someone who has what, $600-700 billion net worth and doesn't do any charity or donation or doesn't help people unless it's his own charity fund or stuff that benefits, his friends or his political, folk that he wants to support so they can go scratch his back in return. But the whole idea kind of like got me thinking of like, yeah, but actually that might be the answer, right? From the perspective, or one of the answers for us to help prevent the negative future of AI and help alleviate the pressure and that negativity that is affecting vulnerable individuals who are not necessarily currently in a position to benefit from all this AI growth. Because if you think about UBI, it's like there's some debates, right? Obviously, there's a cost, there's a fear that, hey, people are not going to do any kind of work and they're just going to go sit there and collect the checks. Yes, you can address that. You can also address that by thinking about, like, I think there was mentioned some over here on the side, like universal basic employment, and maybe there's some opportunities for people to get employed and make sure we have job creation opportunities, right? Like, there needs to be a system in place that works against those incentives that today essentially incentivize to cut as many people as possible, right? And yes, it's very socialistic notion, but this is reality. Like, I'm excited about these tools. I want them to be out there. I want us to use it, but we have to face the reality that yourself, myself, we're likely in a better position to benefit from it than more people out there who need help. And the good indicator, a couple of indicators I'm going to use, but like one of them, coal mining was a good example, right? Like, you can see the amount of jobs, and it's the US labor statistics, right? So we're looking at the US, but like Australia went through kind of like similar cycle. For example, you had thousands and thousands of jobs created back in the day in the coal mining, right? Like, and I can probably even cut it further back and it's going to be even higher. Yeah, you see it's like the downturn if you go back like 30-40 years, but then slowly, and rightfully so, coal is not an efficient energy, no matter who will tell you. There's a lot of the better ways we can now create energy, but you essentially have this downturn. The problem is, when that downturn was happening, all the politicians kept promising like, oh, things are going to be fine, jobs will come back, it's going to be fine. They didn't focus on the right things to do, which was go and re-educate people, give them opportunities, give them some ways to participate in this current benefit, right? Like, whatever the current industry that's switching, natural energy, any kind of like nuclear energy, whatever is coming in, like, give folks opportunity to go and participate. Instead, we just kind of abandoned them all. We just said, yep, deuces, you're on your own. And towns went into desolate state. People lost jobs, lost hope in the future, couldn't provide for their families, and we kind of just deserted them and left them on the side. And like, AI is a good example, because like one of the jobs I was thinking about in terms of like automation, future technological improvements, like trucking, right? A lot of companies are out there, including Elon Musk, Tesla, right? Like, trying to figure out like, hey, how can we replace the truck drivers and essentially create autonomous trucks, which I think is a good thing. Like, honestly, autonomous cars, I'm a huge fan of the idea, primarily because of the number of deaths and injuries that are happening on the roads every single day, right? Like, I don't think humans are built, especially with all the distractions today, including myself. I can be terrible sometimes as well. My my phone is less so my problem, is just like fidgeting with the tools or just like being sometimes distracted behind the wheel. We're just not built for that. And we're driving this thing at like, speeds that can kill someone. We should just be replaced. Like, I'm very willing, once there's a safe technology out there, to, give up the steering wheel. I'll keep racing on the racetrack or something. But like, I'm good. Like, drive me from A to B. I don't need to be involved, right, in it. And there's a lot of jobs. Like, there are different stats. You can go here and there. But like, more than half of United States, trucker is a number one job, right? And all of these people, what's going to happen to them? For example, like, have anyone thought about it? Like, hey, do we have any programs around it? Like, no, because what's going to happen is that the moment there are companies out there that can automate it, it's going to expedite things. It's going to make things cheaper from the perspective of deliveries. Corporations will jump on it. They'll fire all these individuals. They will not even bat an eye because, again, number goes up, good for me, right? And this is where, kind of like, coming back to this whole idea of how do we then support the programs like UBI, UB, anything like that, right? Like, just in general, and coming back to the incentives, I think, unfortunately, you have a couple of options. One of them is always kind of like, hey, let's go and put extra taxes, right, on these companies and essentially start generating more income from them. The problem is there's so many loopholes to avoid corporate taxes, right? It's number one. And number two, it's perceived very negatively in terms of like, oh, you're just deteriorating the business's opportunity to grow and something like this. And this is where I have a side story that kind of got me thinking about how this all can be a little bit better connected. Back in the day, when the maps used to look like this, and you had these towns, and we had like smaller houses and bigger, more rich houses, and blah, 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 blah. There was a very strong incentive for individuals who are making a lot of money and living in these cities and benefiting from, say, selling a bunch of different goods to the folk in this city. They had an incentive to go and invest in the rest of the town around them, right? There was a social contract between the rich folks and the rich organizations within these cities and the regular folk, and kind of like just in general environment of like, hey, you benefiting from this place. You are making the money thanks to the fact that there are people here who are going to spend the money on you. So you're going to reinvest and build gardens, build social gathering spots, invest in the improvement of the, kind of like infrastructure, aqueducts, things of that nature. You are investing into the betterment of this town using the money that you gained from this town, right? Because the problem is that if there is economic downturn, if people are facing hardships, this will show up on your doorstep. Right? So as a rich person, as a rich organization of that time, you knew that you need to take care of things around you. Right? And the problem today, if you think about kind of like the current environment, is that it's a completely opposite. Now, all these corporations, all these individuals, the moment you're going to bring up any kind of like extra tax, extra wealth income tax to support social programs, it's like, what are you doing? Like, I'm not gonna buy my third $100 million yacht. Like, I have in mind. And they just leave and they try to bounce, or they threaten to bounce and then they will move, right? But then they hire some very high expert like tax attorney to go help them kind of like circumvent all of these laws and taxes. It's a tough situation, tough balance to strike, right? But it's an important one because, as I said, like, if you compare it to those days where people used to invest in the cities around them, today there's zero incentive, to that keyword that I mentioned earlier, for all these billionaires and all these companies to go and invest around them, because all the incentives are structured around make that enterprise value and the stock price go up, right? It's never about invest in your community, invest in the towns around you, invest in the betterment of this place, right? And this is that lack of incentive connection structure that I think we need to break. And again, UBI might be a terrible idea, UB might be a terrible idea, whatever, right? Like, higher corporate tax is a terrible idea. But I think ultimately, if I'll strip it all down to the core, and this is, I think, the important, you always want to focus on what is your North Star, what is the core idea, and then figure out how do you navigate towards it. I think the core idea of the betterment of the perception of the AI is how can these companies, and any company in the general broader kind of like, S&P 500, Fortune 500, how can they reinvest into the betterment of the communities around them, right? I think this is the important shift that we need to go through. If you disagree with it, if you're like, it's not their job, it's whatever, right? The problem that you need to realize is that anytime the conversation comes up about like, hey, but like coal mining going down, like trucker jobs may be going away in the future, right? Like some other jobs are disappearing. they don't consider it their problem, right? And they never will. And I don't think they should ultimately, right? Like the corporations are there to be corporations and make money for their stakeholders, whatever, right? Like I think it's reasonable. But I think whether you're local government, whether you're federal government, you have to very kind of like be honest with yourself is that those corporations, those individuals, the billionaires, they'll never really care about taking care of people around them, right? Like their incentive structure is not rewarding them for this. Their incentive structure is very specific. And anytime AI comes in and a bunch of people get laid off, they will not worry about what's going to happen to them. It's going to be your problem as a government, right? Like you as a government then not have to take care of those people. And again, if you try to claim like, no, they should be taking care of them, we're going to increase taxes on them for this, like they're going to go and try to leave, right? And you're going to create more issues with it. So you're going to create an incentive structure and create something in place that goes and motivates those organizations, those companies to go and invest in the local communities, invest in towns. And maybe it's like base level of employments. I don't know, the requirement, like sometimes when Amazon, I think, was a good example in Richmond. I think it was Richmond or whichever one of the towns close to DC that they were trying to open their second headquarters. There was a requirement they need to at least create 6,000 jobs, right? Something like this, like, hey, if you operate, you benefit from this area. You're not just like sucking out all the resources and trying to leave. If you set up your data center here and you're going to be running very profitable AI business here, there's a minimum number of people you need to employ. And yes, it may sound very socialistic, but like, we need to take care of people because no one else will. Those companies will never. They will not care. Those billionaires will never. They will not care, right? Like they're like, oh, it's government's problem. You guys go do it. And for the government to do this, I feel like their laws and their regulations need to change from the perspective of really understanding like, hey, you guys here not only to be just, making money and bouncing whenever things are getting convenient, you are here benefiting from this growth. So you need to kind of like pay back, reinvest back in the community, reinvest back in the future talent, reinvest back in the programs that will support the individuals around us so we can have that healthier world like back in the day in, say, ancient Rome, so that this entire town, this entire global town that we're building can work in harmony. Because if you don't, the Butlerian jihad is going to come up. You have to change the perception, right, around these technologies. You have to provide better opportunities for individuals, not because we just want to go and support everyone and anyone, right? Just we want to give folks opportunities to have quality life. I think that's if anyone out there, if you have an idea of like, oh, why would we ever do this? Like, go look yourself in the mirror. Yeah, you need to check your morals, but also if you feel like, oh, it's not whatever corporation jobs, but also government should not be there, like you just got sold on the propaganda. Like a lot of corporations sell this idea of like, oh, this should never be a topic because it's not capitalistic. Like, who cares? We should be taking care of people. Very simple philosophy. I want everyone to be good. Like, I want everyone, whether I like them or not, I want them to be healthy. I want them to be able to provide for their family. I want them to have a safe, roof above their head and have an opportunity to do something positive with their life. Life is short. We don't want to waste it. Like, let them enjoy it. Let them have an opportunity to take care of people who they love, right? And I think that concept should not be strange, should not be unusual for anyone. And that's why, from the perspective of, as we think about AIs, we think about like, hey, but why do we talk about all this social stuff related to AI? Like, unfortunately, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better when it comes to the perception of AI, because again, today we don't have infrastructure in place and incentives in place to reward all main actors and participants in this to go and help individuals who will be negatively affected by these programs, by these tools. And there will be, right? Like, right now, I was joking earlier that some companies just fake it and they say it's AI, but it's not really AI, just like their company is not in good shape. But there will be a situation. I strongly believe that there will be jobs eliminated. And AI is different from like coal mining, because tools that automate and streamline work, they will be much more prevalent across all different industries and walks of life. And there can be benefit. I strongly believe that there's going to be interesting companies that's going to come out of this, and those companies will hire individuals. There's going to be new careers and opportunities that will come out. Like, this for some people is a career, and it never would have happened if video cameras would not get cheaper and technology to like store the videos and do all of this will not be democratized as much as they were. So like AI, I think, will democratize and create a lot more opportunities. Absolutely. It's going to happen. But the thing is that between now and then, there's going to be this gap. There's going to be a lot of people affected who were not taken care of, and corporations will never take care of them, and they're going to be threatening if you're going to try to take money away from them. But there needs to be a reset in the conversation, I think, between individuals, the companies, the owners, and governments, and say, like, no, we need to create a harmony. It's not winner takes all. You're benefiting from residing in this country, you're benefiting from residing in this city, in this county. You got to invest back. It doesn't have to be a tax. You can even get some tax benefits from it, but you got to properly invest in the betterment of the community. Otherwise, it's just going to go down the negative route that we will never enjoy. None of us will enjoy. You might have to move. People might not be perceiving you well and be joking that you're a microslop, right? Like, there's going to be a decision that has to be made. And I think socialist label, not socialist label, I don't care. I think it's just important to take care of people. And it's important to create harmony, because if you create harmony, you take care of people, people will be a lot more receptive to the idea of these kind of technologies entering their life, because they no longer be just perceived as something that kills their jobs, deteriorates the quality of the products and the content and their life in general. It's going to be something like, hey, yes, it's here, and maybe I don't have a job, but like, hey, there's a safety net program out there that still allows me to provide for my family. And so I don't hate this as much. I just have to go spend some time, get trained, learn a new job, learn a new career, maybe open my own business using some of those AI tools. So yeah, just I know I jumped through a bunch of things, but I wanted to rant a little bit about this because I feel strongly. I feel like people are losing a little bit the narrative through all this like excitement, and we can talk about the validity of the valuations and how soon AI can actually make profit. But that's a story for another video. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.